Okay, so I am Cassandra Dittmer, for a lot of you who don't know me, and I am a sustainable stylist. I've lived in LA and Los Angeles for about 8 years by way of Iowa. I had a short stint in Seattle as well, but I am a fashion stylist and creative consultant. So a little bit of my background is I, for the last 8 years, have worked as a red carpet stylist. Everything from assisting to starting my own business just over 3 years ago. And in that traditional styling role, it was everything from premieres, red carpets, mostly red carpets, a lot of press tours, a lot of travel. And as I started my own company about 3 years ago, I was really trying to dig into how I can make this traditional styling mold work for me and kind of like what's missing. So as I've really been, doing in the work to figure out what it means to work with me and what it means to work with a sustainable stylist, I've kind of cultivated this values-based approach to styling. So this can be everything from considered sustainability, ethics, supply chain, making sure that you're champion ethical brands, minority-owned brands, working with brands that are size inclusive, really just having the inception of the styling conversation be about your values. And I know I say sustainable styling and it sounds a little bit, maybe it's greenwashing or something. How are we actually doing this? So really my hope in this live is just to demystify that a bit for you and kind of let you guys in on this process that I've curated. I think we're in my closet right now. I think the best way to show you guys actually is just to kind of talk through some of my personal pieces that I've purchased and kind of my thought process that I take to buying things for myself. As I've been curating this sustainable styling model, I've really whittled it down to considering the ethics, the environment, and the economics that goes into making a product. So these 3 E's, how can we make the best decision possible given the economics, ethics, and environment? So a lot of these brands tick many or at least one of these boxes. So first up is a jacket that I love from a brand called Public Habit. And this one is extra special to me because I'm doing a collaboration with them as well. Actually right now, my first design collaboration. And they are a radically transparent company. So you can go on their website and find everything about their supply chain, their pricing, everything is made to order. So there's no warehouse cost. They really put their money and resources into the labor and the materials, and it shows. So they have a lot of beautiful products. This is one of them. Next up is from this brand called Margot Molyneux, which I found last fall when I went to South Africa. And she is a Cape Town based designer. And she also really falls under this kind of economic box of really considered supply chain, cut, color, sewn, in-house, very small run. I met her and went to her factory when I was in Cape Town, and female owned business, and just kind of seeing how transparent they are and open in their communication with their customer and their employees is really cool. Next up is this Manning Cartel dress. And this is an Australian brand. So they are really, really considered ethics as well in their company, and they adhere to all of Australia's standards for ethical design and are very committed to social responsibility. Next up is this Neo Coco set. It has these cute outline of a girl on them, of a woman. And this is a really special brand that I just found through Instagram. They actually had found me. So every purchase lifts marginalized women. So what does that mean? Meaning they're completely mission driven. They're LA based, female owned and operated, and all of their workers are refugees or displaced. Next up is this knitwear from, it's like a knit top, high neck. I love this cut. This is a very me cut. This brand is called 116, and it's ethically produced knitwear from Peru. I found it on one of my favorite websites, which is Maison de Mode. And it's a family-owned factories, very ethical in their standards, and also very transparent. Next up is Nanushka, which is a brand that I found in Budapest a couple years ago, even though they've been around for a while. And this is all faux leather. And they're very into craftsmanship and empowering communities, and are also just very transparent in their environmental impact. Next is this Levi's made and crafted jacket. So I met a bunch of the Levi's team in Copenhagen earlier this year at Fashion Summit when they announced their commitment to zero waste, and they launched their hemp collection. So of course that's the most sustainable from a material standpoint that you can get. This is actually from their organic cotton line, but Levi's is very transparent and a leader in building community in relation to sustainability. And let's see, the last one that I'll talk about, just to not bring up too many, is Maggie Marilyn. And I am obsessed with her. I've been obsessed with her brand for a very long time. Radically transparent, they're always constantly kind of challenging and redefining norms in the industry, communicate super honestly with their customer. They do a lot with packaging and carbon emissions to reduce waste, water management, and their website and social media. They're very, I go to them as a resource constantly for books, podcasts. They're very into building this community around sustainability, which I obviously really believe in. And so just kind of by showing you sustainable styling through my closet, these are the conversations that I like having with myself, I like having with brands, and I want to have more with you guys. And to me, this is the future of styling. Again, to demystify this values-based approach to styling and sustainable styling. Like, still, what does that mean? And what does it mean for me, for my clients? And how I have started to transition this is I have an online platform. I call it e-styling, and that's everything from event styling to targeted research, replenishing staples, doing closet overhauls, all completely online and all values based. So the curation is based off your needs, based off your values. That is the inception of the conversation. We start with a questionnaire and an email exchange, and whittle it down to what your needs are and how we can execute and showcase your values through your needs. And the reason that I did this is because I'm finding friends, clients, family alike, that people are really wanting something more accessible, and people are really striving to be more of a resource in this space. And through a series of curated boutiques, video calls, kind of depending on what your needs are, that is the e-styling process. Someone had asked me an interview question the other day of how do you kick, that I really loved. It was, how do you kick this dopamine high of buying something new? How do you replace that? And I love that question because I feel like it's true. Above all values, people still love buying new things. And how do you replace that feeling or redirect that energy? And I really believe that when you put in the work to become a resource and build a deeper connection with your clothing, you will have that feeling of, you're not participating as much in fast fashion, and you have this connection with everything that you're wearing, and that energy replaces the need to just buy. And, you know, some of the resources that I love and look to, I love EcoAge. I had mentioned earlier Maison de Mode, which is where I get a lot of my stuff from. They have a great website. Also, Good Trade is another great resource. For more information on, you know, policy perspective, circular systems, you know, really trying to understand environmental and systematic racism and how that ties in to fashion and sustainability. Those are really important topics. I'm looking to the New Fashion Initiative, Fashion Revolution. I recently started following Slow Factory, at Slow Factory, and I think they're an amazing resource. And as you build this community through education and as we demand increased transparency from these brands, you will implement a more mindful purchasing habits and a deeper connection to clothing. Really from like a personal, personal branding, I think you are building out this individuality by becoming a resource for yourself. And you can really, you know, a couple other ways to do that, of course, is, you know, repurposing. And I think the difference of, upcycling versus recycling. So recycling, to simply the way I understand it, is, you know, recycling is putting materials in its raw form, whereas upcycling is taking something that's existing and making it better. So that's definitely another one of my hacks, of my personal hacks, is what do you have? How can you make it better? How can you put your time and energy into not just buy, and to really integrate deep and meaningful connections to your wardrobe? So I kind of did just touch on that, but I do love vintage. I love styling with vintage, kind of in that same space of recycling versus upcycling. The other day I was telling someone that I really think, you know, vintage or renting clothing is an easy stepping stone to a more sustainable lifestyle. A good hack is, if you're wanting to buy designer, you should not have to buy new designer handbags. You should absolutely buy vintage. You know, there's so much that's existing, and I think it used to have such a stigma, and now people are really getting excited about vintage. And that's great. I hope that keeps growing, and that's a great stepping stone to becoming more sustainable. And someone else had asked what inspires me, which is also a great question. And I feel like I'm the most inspired by my friends, my family, travel. As you can probably tell from my styling approach, I tend to be a bit more inspired by people, inspired by concepts, inspired by places I go. An example of that is I'm doing, for my Public Habit collaboration, I've been working on my mood board, and so the brand is produced in Singapore. The factories are in Singapore, but it is a Seattle-based brand. So through the mood boarding and through the styling, something that I've really been trying to kind of dig into is like, how can I champion and elevate all of these amazing components that make up this brand? How can we style it with, you know, an East meets West concept? How can we champion the community that it's made in, you know, the customer, which is a global customer? I think that those are kind of how I start with concepts, is I tend to be really inspired by the people that are wearing the clothes. And, you know, right now is such a weird time for everyone. And I've always wanted to be designing, and I think it's an interesting time to be entering this design space, because we don't need a lot of new. We really don't need a lot of new. And I feel like there's a big responsibility if you are going to be adding to our waste right now. There's a big responsibility to do it to the absolute best that you can, and really consider those 3 E's: ethics, economics, environment. And if you are choosing to add, how can you make the best out of that? And, bringing that back. So really just, I am inspired by these concepts of people and what we do. I'm designing with cashmere and wool right now because we want it to be super livable, and people are working from home, people are busy, people are complicated, and maybe we don't need as many evening gowns or things that are just a bit fussy. I think right now we really want people who are like, we want them to work with what's important to them, what's actually wearable, what works in their life, and not just like make things that people don't need. So really kind of digging in and being really inspired by the customer. I think that's the customer, the client. That's definitely like where I start my process for sure. What are the first pieces to think about when trying to build a sustainable closet? So I think a lot of people do, I think if you start with some of your basics, which I think are what people think of when they think of sustainable styling. So there's the good and bad to that. The bad, and what people need to wake up to, is that sustainable in, organic fashion is not just t-shirts. It's a lot more than that. There's sustainability woven into every category across the board, and it's no longer granola or hippie or something like that to dress sustainably. It is the future, and it's here, and we got here even quicker than we probably wanted to. And really, I find often that the industry is there's a lot of mystique to it, and it's also not a super inclusive place. And I think a lot of people feel like it's too hard to even get started. And I think that at that point, that's when it's okay. Start with the basics. Buy the next time you need something, the next time you really need something, buy something sustainable. Do your research. Find a brand that supports you. Message me, before you just buy. Do a bit of research, and also just start somewhere. And as you slowly build that community, all of a sudden there's more brands, there's more people. It feels not inclusive, but it really is growing. And that's honestly how I started. I felt initially like I was on this island and no one else cared about sustainable fashion, and that's just not true. You are a product of who you surround yourself with and who you follow and what you choose to digest. And I really believe that if you start putting it out there in the universe that this is important to you, it will come back. It will come back, and you will start to slowly realize good brands. And also, every item isn't going to tick every box. So just because an item isn't 100% sustainable across the board doesn't mean that's not a good item. That means that if it's a brand that's transparent and they're willing to bring you on this journey, great. Support brands that are on the journey and are transparent and are willing to have these conversations about their supply chain and about their pricing, and support people that values are integrated into the fiber of their business, and kind of support each other growing. Because if you don't start somewhere, you're just never gonna start. A tip to becoming an entrepreneur, and that is that no one is ever ready to become an entrepreneur, and you have to get ready to be a one-man band. So that's everything from, I feel like 90% of the time I'm not styling. You're the web designer, you're the manager, you're the accountant, Start small. And even if you have something that you start while you maybe have a full-time job, just starting is the hardest part. And you will change what you do 100 times, but you just have to be able to have the vulnerability to begin. But yeah, I'd love to hear more of your guys' questions. This is so fun. I could go on all day. Please DM or follow me. My handle is @Cassandra, @CASSANDRA. This was really fun, so please feel free to continue the conversation there. And see you guys soon. Bye.